Now let's talk about dramaturgical analysis. This was created by a symbolic interactionist named Irving Goffman, and it is called Dramaturgical Analysis, the Presentation of Self. He suggested that people act like actors, perform like actors in a theatrical performance. People act in ways that resemble actors on a stage. So this sounds a little bit like a line from William Shakespeare's play, As You Like It. All the world's a stage, and all the people merely players. That's what they called actors back in Shakespeare's days, players, because you were in a play. So he's suggesting that if you watch people interact, it's like watching a performance on stage. And for those of us who like to people watch, and oftentimes I ask my students, how many people in here like to people watch? And I'll see a lot of hands go up in the air. I myself love to watch people too. And I also like to watch the plethora of reality shows that have bombarded us on TV every night. I mean, reality shows have become probably one of the most popular genres or forms of TV today. And the reason for that is because people believe this premise that these individuals are just being themselves, but cameras are following them around. And a lot of times these reality show actors or individuals will say, well, after a while you forget the camera's there. I can't imagine a camera following me around and me not being conscious of the camera being there, but more than a few reality show stars have said that after a while you just kind of forget that the camera is there. But for many of us, we won't be in a reality show. We won't act in a reality show. But we'll go to the mall, we'll go to the beach, we'll go to different places, and we'll watch people come and go. And what they do and how they act can be entertaining for us, especially if they're arguing. Have you ever been in a restaurant and overheard a couple fighting or arguing? You'll notice that when people are having arguments, other people will get very quiet and go, shh, look, they're arguing. Because all of a sudden it's entertainment for them. So this is what Goffman was suggesting. Now this is the definition of dramaturgical analysis. It is the investigation or examination of social interaction in terms of theatrical performances. So while you're watching people interact, it's like watching actors on a stage. And you yourself are being watched by other people. So you become an actor to them. So what he's suggesting is that people who are around us are our audience, and we are their audience. So we act a certain way. We act in ways that are expected, and sometimes we act in unexpected ways, and people are kind of shocked by our behavior. But when we're conscious of the presence of others, sometimes it shapes how we act. So just like a play has various elements, so does dramaturgical analysis. So it starts with performance. So I'm going to contrast this with a play or movie. The first part is performance, conscious and unconscious. So there is conscious behavior, meaning there are ways that we act deliberately or on purpose, and then there is unconscious behavior that we're not aware of. But guess who sees it? Your audience. They're aware of it, and sometimes they call it out. They might say, well, what's wrong with you? And you say, what? Nothing. Well, you don't sing yourself today. You're acting different. Hear that? Acting different. Because you've been putting on a performance, and all of a sudden you're having a bad day, and they see a side of you that they never seen before. And now they're pointing it out. So just like an actor on stage, the actor is being directed, and they're expected to act a certain way. So if they forget their line or the performance isn't strong enough or believable enough or authentic enough, the director will say, hey, get back in character, reminding the person that you're acting in ways that are unconscious. I need you to be conscious of your behavior and get back into your character. And sometimes we'll say, well, I don't know why I'm acting this way. It's kind of out of character for me. There's also dress, the way we dress. So sometimes we dress casually. When we're in school, we dress very comfortably. If we go to a wedding, we change our costume or dress. We dress more appropriate for a wedding. If we're going on a job interview, there's a costume for that too. So we pick a particular outfit or attire so that we can impress our potential employer. So that's an example of dress. How we dress fits the setting. And then there's props, objects that you carry around. So if you think about a play, there are props in a play. If it's a living room scene, what you're going to see is furniture like a love seat, a sofa, a coffee table, so forth and so on. When the curtains close and it's a bedroom scene and the curtains open up, then the set manager moves all of the props out the way and switches the props around. So now when the curtains open up, you see a bedroom, a nightstand, a dresser, so forth and so on. So it looks like a bedroom. So when you're at school, you're in a classroom, you go home, that's a different setting, and there are different props there. Sometimes when you go to school, you bring props with you. You bring a pen or a pencil or something to write with. You bring your textbook or notepads. But when you go on a date, you don't necessarily bring those things with you. If you go to a wedding, you don't bring your notebooks and your paper and things like that with you because you're at a wedding. It's a different setting. You don't need those props. And then there's mannerisms, the way you act in a particular setting. So when you're in a classroom, if the teacher asks a question or your professor say any comments or you have a question, you do what? You raise your hand. But in a casual conversation one-on-one with your best friend, do you raise your hand? Probably not. So you see, your mannerisms change depending on the setting. So all of this is subject to change depending on the setting that you're in. And then there's nonverbal communication. Now, whether we know it or not, a lot of our communication is nonverbal. And nonverbal communication refers to body language or gestures. So again, if you're having a conversation with someone and they start giving you a certain facial expression, you might interpret that a certain way. If someone says something you don't like and you go, you didn't have to say anything. But by you going, that's like saying, what? Who are you talking to? So your face changes depending on what they said. So without saying anything, you can shift your facial expression and a person will stop mid-sentence and say, what? You don't like what I said? You got a problem with that? Or what? Are you offended? Without the person saying a word, we can just read their body language, nonverbal communication, and they can say so much that way. And then there's front stage, backstage behavior. Now at a play, there's the front stage, there's the backstage. The front stage is what's visible to the audience. So when the curtains open up and the person and the director yells, and action, people begin to act. So in front of an audience, you're putting on your best performance. But then the curtains close, and that's backstage. And that's the area that's not visible to the audience. That is the area out of the audience's sight. And that's where we engage in unexpected or inappropriate behavior. So what is front stage in everyday life? It's how we act in front of other people. It's that side of them we want them to see, our nice, appropriate behavior. But backstage, and we all have a backstage, is where we engage in behavior that would shock other people, people that don't know us that well. That's our backstage. So front stage and backstage behavior contradict each other because how we are in public isn't always how we are in private.